time to talk about some more completely useless media that came out of WMUR. This is not abnormal. It's just how these guys operate. They don't make anything worthy of your time, but, you know, it's what a lot of people pay attention to, so it's probably worth taking apart. This time, Adam Sexton decided it would be a great idea to have Kelly Ayotte on and then not really, effectively press her on anything after just, it's like he starts to, and then he kind of fails at doing that job. So might as well just get into the nonsense right now. It's going to be a rough watch, I promise, but we'll make it through it together.
Good morning, I'm Adam Sexton. Governor Kelly Ayotte just delivered her State of the State address to the legislature, discussing achievements of her first year in office and her outlook on 2026. This is also an election year, but at the moment, the governor does not have a major opponent. So we are in unique and interesting territory here, and we get to navigate it this morning with the governor herself. Governor Ayotte, thanks for joining us on Close Up.
Good morning, Adam. It's great to be here.
So let's start with the story that a lot of people have been talking about this last week, this proposed ICE facility in Merrimack, and a shocker as the American Civil Liberties Union uncovers this application with a relatively obscure state division of historical resources for what's called 106 compliance. For those who don't know, this is just sort of like a check the box historical and preservational thing where to make sure you can continue to build on a property. The commissioner that oversees the division director both came before you and the executive council this last week and said they missed this and they didn't know that it was with them until they kind of found out late in the process. A mishap, according to them. But you want the Attorney General to look into this. Explain why.
Okay, is a mishap, right? We just didn't know. We had no idea. It wasn't like there weren't protests happening for literally over a month of people getting just utterly outraged that this new facility was going in. Never mind the fact that nobody wants to see people detained just because they're fucking brown or something like that. It's also that it would just shoulder the people of Merrimack with this immense additional tax burden, and probably not just Merrimack. It probably would come from the state as a whole. So on top of just completely invading and trampling on people's basic constitutional rights, it would additionally cause immense taxation burden on people in New Hampshire, which I don't know, man. I guess if you're a cucked libertarian, then sure, you're happy to pay more money. You're happy to have bigger government if it's for continuing your own personal grievances and hatred towards people that have more melanin in their skin than you. But whatever. Let's just keep this. Is oh god.
Well, I do, because I think it was unacceptable that we did not receive that information and that it wasn't communicated with Merrimack.
Outrage, right?
I've been in touch with the town of Merrimack. My team has as well. And we've been in touch with the White House, Department of Homeland Security, because I want transparency for Merrimack, for the people of Merrimack, so that they can weigh in on whether this facility comes and what the impact is on their community. So I thought, I need to understand, what are the circumstances? Why wasn't this information raised? There's also, as the counselor pointed out at the meeting, there's a comment
what's up with this
portion that I think Merrimack would have liked to weigh in on. So that's why I'm asking the Attorney General, let's find out what happened here so it doesn't happen again. And most importantly, I think Merrimack needs transparency.
Democrats are on the...
What, she's she wants transparency for this town, right? As if she doesn't have a job where she can act as an intermediary between the federal government and towns and counties or whatever in the state. Did she just forget that her job exists while she sits there? This is what's so this is going to be pervasive throughout this interview, is it's so mind-boggling to me that she's not capable of conceiving of the concept that she has a job to do, which is to operate the state. What are you elected to do, lady? What's going on here? I'm so confused.
The attack here saying you must have known about this somehow.
Well, I think the commissioner came forward and said, number one, she didn't know, she claims, and then also that I didn't know. So I don't know what they're talking about.
Had you been looped in?
So wait, hold on. She's saying, well, I didn't know because the commissioner didn't know. And she said, the commissioner said that I didn't know. Well, like, why don't you just say, I don't know? Why can't you just answer the question? What's so hard about that? Like, I really hope that folks get just fed up writ large with politicians' just inability to directly answer questions. Like, this is, I swear to God, and I need to say that this applies to like literally everybody. It pisses me off to no end when I see it from like self-proclaimed progressives or liberals, just the same as I take issue with it when I see it happen with conservatives or whatever, right? It doesn't really matter. It's the sort of political dodge of, you know, dancing around the question and not answering the question. And then somehow corporate media outlets are like, yeah, okay, that's a fine answer. We'll just take that. Like, why just address it? You know what I mean? Like, and look, like, I've dealt with it in interviews myself, and sometimes it's just like impossible to get these people to not be like a squirmy fish about the whole thing, and they're just like slippery and slide out of it. And the best you can do is just point out to people that like they didn't answer the question, or you have to have some sort of like alternate media, like what I'm doing literally right now, come in and say, look, they're not answering the question. Don't be fucking duped by these people, because they're trying to pull the wool over your eyes and then rob you of everything that's in your pockets. It's just what they do. So maybe we need to have like some thicker skin about like getting into confrontations. It would be nice if media maybe like got back to that point, but I don't know that we're really there yet. So c'est la vie.
On January 26th, when the division director says he became aware of the 91A request from the ACO for the information, would you have allowed the immediate release of that information to proceed? How would you have handled that?
Oh, we would have reached out to Merrimack right away. I think that would have been important because we want to let them know any information that we have. So there's also a comment portion on that if they wanted to weigh in as a obviously representing that community. So we would have been very transparent with it.
You know, the system, the online system where DHS filed this, clearly it was created to try and ease the process, right? For people who are building and developing, to make sure they can do this quickly and affordably. You know, if I'm building a housing development in Dover now and it's in a historic or preservation district, how is this not going to slow down the process if the division director has to kind of, check for, political implications?
Well, Adam, this is kind of common sense. We're talking about a federal facility that had wide public discussion, right? We're not talking about building a house in this neighborhood in Dover. So I just think we got to use our common.
This is nuts. Okay. What he said is actually like a good equivalent in comparison, because for anybody that's had to deal with like a local zoning board, or anybody that's tried to like actually look into creating new housing developments for people within the state, understands the amount of red tape that exists that's entirely prohibitive from allowing people to actually like execute a project, setting aside like the just immense costs that are also prohibitive to creating something like new housing, right? And all of that red tape acts as a barrier between like an impulse to respond to something that people don't appreciate that's happening, and then actually taking any kind of action to materialize a solution to that problem. Now, because the Trump administration has set this sort of like insane precedent of ignoring laws, like any sort of established precedent that's been existing in our society for however long it has, and then just sort of like the whole like, oh, we'll beg for forgiveness rather than ask for permission type of thing. There's this thing that happens where they'll just the private corporate interests will just simply do whatever they want and then worry about it on the back end with courts, but it doesn't really matter because you've already done it. Like a good example here is like the East Wing of the White House. Like a lot of times I think that kind of stuff is sort of a smokescreen, because it's like this big like cultural thing that people get all roiled up about, and then, you know, it hides whatever actual material issues are happening, things that, like, you know, it's a distraction piece. The you know, in the same way that the whole bike bill that went through the New Hampshire House was really just a giant distraction. I think Paige Boschman talked about this, how that was just a straight distraction so that people didn't see them setting up the open enrollment for public schools, which would basically completely destroy public schooling in the state. And that's just another, you know, again, that's another prong of them trying to just completely undermine any type of public education system or whatever, right? This is how this stuff operates. They want misdirection. And in this instance, what she's doing is she's saying, well, we need to engage in process in order to make sure that everybody gets a fair shake. But that completely ignores the fact that the property that this proposed ICE facility is supposed to go on is owned by somebody that's out of state. The person lives literally in Texas, right? So this is a negotiation between somebody who lives in Texas and the federal government. So the amount of red tape that exists between the town of Merrimack and the federal government going and creating a deal with this private landowner who does not even live within the bounds of the state is like, that's so far removed. Okay. And so by laser focusing on that, it completely ignores the fact that the governor could literally just intervene in this context and say, no, we're not doing that. You know, the state government has the power to basically say, no, we don't permit this. You can pass laws, you can do all kinds of stuff that doesn't allow for this to occur. But that's not what's happening. And by sort of offloading the problem onto the town, onto the federal government, onto whatever, she's once again going back to what I said earlier, just like completely abdicating any responsibility that she has in her job. So she's functionally useless. She literally does nothing. All she does is sit there and try and look cool and then take any kind of responsibility for whatever terrible or, in her eyes, maybe good legislation gets passed by the insane libertarians in the state house. So, you know, it's just more fucking uselessness.
In sense here, this should have clearly risen. And the fact that the commissioner didn't know, come on, the leader of that organization, and then not the governor's office and the community. You know, we all work in government. Let's just use our common sense and our brains here.
This is another just incredibly patronizing thing where she keeps sort of like hammering on the common sense angle. And that's like, that is literally spitting in the face of your intelligence, right? Like, oh, it's common sense. We should no, it's that is literally a way for you to say all of my detractors are stupid. Like, and for anybody that's just a total sheep that buys into whatever the rhetoric of her team is going to say, yeah, they're stupid. And really, it's just like leveraging the stupidity of those people and the degree to which they're just completely servile to somebody that will lie boldly to their face and say, yeah, the state is bad and the government is bad. But, you know, we're the government. So like, we're going to implement any kind of like whatever agenda we have, we'll send through with draconian power and authoritarian methods, and you'll applaud it because it's ostensibly within the purview of your interests. But anything outside of that is the antithesis to it. It's very hypocritical. It's very nonsensical.
When we have something like this come in that has such implications, let's make sure the community knows. Let's make sure the governor knows, the council, the legislators.
Back to the proposed facility itself. Is this, in your opinion, an appropriate location to house 500 to 1,000 immigrant detainees?
Well, I haven't studied the location, but what's most important here, Adam, is what does the local community think? The elected officials there, what are the impacts for the town of Merrimack? There's obviously going to be additional public.
He didn't ask what the community thinks. He asked what you think. So like this is just another bitch made move where you can't even answer the question for yourself. You can't take a position because probably you're afraid of the fact that you're just completely like tanking in approval ratings right now. So like Kelly's doing anything she can to basically like offload any of the responsibility for just her complete uselessness onto anybody else that she can, while, you know, trying to appear strong to people. It's really tragic and pathetic on her part. So, you know, I mean, again, she's garbage, and she literally is sitting here saying absolutely nothing. It's incredible.
Public safety resources, when you have a facility like that, does it make sense? That's why there needs to be more transparency here. That's why Merrimack needs to weigh in, because they know their community best. I believe in the local voice on this.
You know, it's very interesting to see on that application, I don't know if you noted this, that the DHS wrote, this is called the ICE Boston Detainee or ICE Boston Processing Center. You ran on Don't Mass Up New Hampshire.
That's right.
You know, and now the Trump administration wants to take illegal immigrants from Boston and Massachusetts and bring them to Merrimack. Well, it doesn't seem like you could possibly mass something up any more than this. So why not oppose it?
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, let me just tell you, we don't even know what it is yet. I mean, in terms of what they're going to do, I would just ask. And
I agree, but I don't know. So you're what you're saying is you are saying nothing. That is the assertion here, is that you agree with this sort of like cultural touchstone problem that has been articulated by you and plenty of others, you know, but you also don't know anything about it, so you can't really comment on it. Like what is this? This is insane. I wonder if she understands how stupid she looks. Like, because I kind of think she does. I think she kind of gets that this is like inherently idiotic, but also knows that there are a significant portion of people that are stupid enough to believe it. Like, dude, we've completely undermined public education in this state. Like, the amount of people that like will just get like absolutely ravaged by the process and be so snowed by actual, you know, news pieces on stations like WMUR to completely distract them from any kind of reality that they're living in, that they really are that stupid. So I think she knows how stupid this is and is banking on the fact that people are even more stupid and are so dumb that they are able to believe this. It's like, I would be mad if I wasn't just so bummed out. You know what I mean? Like, I really wanted to believe that like people are smarter than this. And I'm not trying to like black pill folks on this problem, but it does become a genuine reality that like this is like, look, for anybody that's interested in any kind of, you know, obviously this is a more progressive channel. And even then I take sort of like umbrance with that word progressive as a whole, because I think a lot of people utilize it and don't understand what it means. There's a lot of people that think liberal and progressive are synonyms, and they're absolutely not. You know, like Kelly is a liberal, like whether she wants to admit it or not, she is indeed a liberal. Like one of the main core tenets of liberalism is property rights. And so that's a significant portion of what she's arguing for here is literally coming from a liberal perspective. So that's when you want to talk about like the uniparty, right? Like you want to talk about the ways in which Democrats and Republicans are the same. It's the liberalism, right? So that's what people need to start wrapping their heads around, is that liberalism is your enemy. Right. In the sense that like that is indeed what has created this current world order, this country order that is causing us to be so subservient to corporate monopolistic interests that are completely bleeding you dry of any type of actual material assistance that you may not need, or support for that matter. Maybe not even just assistance, but just support, just structures that allow you to like exist in a fair way, so that all you have is your treats. Right. And as long as they keep feeding you treats day in and day out, as long as you can keep swiping up on that infinite scroll, that you'll be so captivated by the shiny keys dangling in front of your face that you won't actually interrogate any of the insanity that's happening here.
And I said this the other day. I don't think the administration is handling this properly, that they should let people know, let people weigh in. Let's have an open discussion about this. Let's make sure Merrimack knows what's happening. So I'd like to see them bring forth all the information about what their plans are there.
And you're right that they haven't specifically said that this will be a detaining facility, but this is what they're doing in a lot of other places in the country. You know, I do want to ask you about,
I'm focused on New Hampshire and say, when they're working with New Hampshire, please give us the information.
Right, but your former Senate colleague, Roger Wicker, in Mississippi, hard to imagine a state more red than that.
She said, please give us the information. Since when has the Trump administration responded to any kind of like kind request? You have to demand it from them. You have to literally like and even if you do try to legally force it out of them, understand that they will still fight you. They will still do everything in their power to not provide that to you. Like, you have to use the strongest method possible. Like, it sucks that we're in this insanely like just extreme hyperbolic, which isn't even hyperbolic anymore because it's become reality. But we're in this insane high stakes situation where you literally have to do the most like bureaucratically violent method to attain any kind of meager result. It's gross. And so any request for anything, any type of action that involves decorum or politeness or good faith is we've so long past the point of any of that having any type of effectiveness. And there needs to be direct legal sort of ramifications put in place that results in actually producing things. I mean, a great example, Epstein files. We would not have that if we didn't have that act that basically forced the DOJ to release the files. And even then, to this day, we're like, what, like a month past, more than that? And we still don't even have half the files. Like, even when you mandate by law, they still break it. So like, this is what I'm saying. You can't ask politely. It's smooth brain shit.
He just came out in opposition to a very similar detainee facility in his state, saying, you turn this warehouse into a prison, it's going to take economic development away from us, economic opportunity away from us. You're going to strain human resources and infrastructure. You're going to put public safety at risk.
I think it's a very good point.
Mississippi is standing up to the Trump administration on this. Why not New Hampshire?
I'm standing up to the Trump administration because I've been asking for information, and I've been saying very clearly that the local community.
She's standing up to the Trump administration, but not doing as much as the governor of literal fucking Mississippi. What are we doing here, guys? Like, if that's not being like, if that's not saying, oh, please, sir, tickle my uvula with that boot a little more. I really like it. I really appreciate that you are just jamming that boot-shaped dick so far down my throat that I'm becoming teary-eyed. Like, come on. What are we doing, guys? This is gross. Like, this is really grotesque. It's just it's shameful, it's disappointing, it's embarrassing. Right? That we allowed this absolute moron to attain any kind of power within the state. And I mean, what are we like, what do we do about that? What do we do about the fact that people are so moronic that they're not even able to see that it is against anybody's best interest to continue to support this governor? It's absurd.
He has to have a say in this. And I know that there's deep concern within Merrimack, and I certainly support that local voice. So I will make sure that it's clear that the people of Merrimack have to decide here. And, they need to know what's happening here, if it's happening, what the implications are, and they should have a say, and I would say the final say here.
Why not read?
That's is the other classic thing. Right? If anybody has any kind of awareness of how things work in this state, right? This is the classic downshift, right? Now, the analogy with the downshift is that, like, look, okay, like you're driving a car or you're riding a bike and you decide to shove it into first gear. that you are going to be pedaling or pushing the gas significantly further for less distance, right? It's maybe easier in some ways to gain traction, but you are not moving in any kind of like meaningful way. You need to gear up in order to actually start to go further with less input, right? It's going to take less emphasis on that gas pedal or that bike pedal to push you further. Even if it's maybe pushing a little harder, that little bit of push gets you a lot more coverage. Now, to pull out of that analogy for a second and into the reality of what downshifting does, it sends any responsibility onto the communities who literally have less power because they have less money in their pocket. They have less resources available to them in terms of people, in terms of labor, in terms of whatever, right? Like media outreach, what have you. There's all kinds of different aspects of that. So the reason the state has any kind of like value at all is because it's a higher gear that can be operated in. Now, when the state decides to completely abdicate any responsibility that they have and they literally downshift any of that responsibility onto those communities do not have any kind of commensurate leverage to actually be able to combat the significantly higher gear of the federal government, which again subsidizes private interests, has private interests in their pocket. So if you've got like this insanely wealthy property owner that's from out of state and they're like, creaming off their stock dividends or whatever, right? They're just living off passive income and taking out loans on their stocks so that they're not even paying any fucking taxes in the first place. Like this is the sort of imbalance of power, and the state of New Hampshire could very well on the the gubernatorial level could very much so come in and act as an intermediary to try and balance out some of those powers. But she's not doing that. What she's doing is she's putting all of the responsibility on the town of Merrimack to deal with this. And she, and making it seem like she's advocating for them. But really, she can just read the room and understand that this would not be good for the town of Merrimack and then take action. But that's not how this is going to work. Why? Because she's completely subservient and servile to the Trump administration and can't even have even a quarter of the backbone of a governor of a red state like Mississippi. What the hell, dude? Give me a break.
Direct and say, hey, Trump administration, what about maxing out FCI Berlin? Or you could potentially put pressure on your fellow Republicans who serve at the county commissioner level and say, hey, let's put immigrant detainees in the jails.
It's not my job to find these facilities. That's the Trump administration.
Well, but Merrimack doesn't want it, though, right? The town has said
It's not my job, she says. It's not my job. It's not my job. Oh, my God. What is your job then? What do you do? Like, why did we elect you? Why did anybody vote for you if all you're going to do is get up here and say, it's not my job, not my responsibility, it's on these people, it's on those people, it's on this individual, it's not my responsibility, I'm just supposed to sit here and act like upper management and just plant my ass behind a desk and just watch the clock tick away all day. Like, what value do you have, ma'am? Because it sounds like you're literally telling us that you have zero value. You have no place in any of this. So like maybe just resign. Like what's the point of this? This is all cosmetic. This is all performative. She literally is arguing herself out of a job right now.
We don't want it.
Well, I understand that, and we don't even know if it's happening, but I will tell you that at a minimum, they deserve to have the information, and they should decide whether it comes in their community. But in terms of where these other detainees go, that's for the Department of Homeland Security at the federal level. But local communities have to have a voice here, and they have to be involved. And you should be forthcoming with the information. Full transparency.
It's clear you're a law and order Republican. When people talk about that, they sometimes forget about the second half of that, the order part, that is both the public and how the law is enforced, right? That's a big part of order. You've served as a prosecutor, you served as Attorney General. In your professional opinion, do you think ICE took too aggressive an approach in Minnesota?
You're ready for her to not answer.
Again, I certainly, as having been an Attorney General, looked at these things. What I hope happens there is a complete and thorough investigation. We can all look at, videos.
I'm not going to tell you what I think. I'm just going to tell you that there needs to be more process. Like, dude, she's literally arguing for more government bureaucracy rather than taking any kind of responsibility for any power that she could potentially have or wield. She's saying, no, I need to offload that onto other people. Like, if you're like a conservative libertarian, this shit should make you just as angry as it makes anybody on the left, because she's doing the exact opposite of what you want by bloating the government further, by shifting responsibility onto even more bureaucratic institutions to proceduralize any type of action that needs to be taken, rather than just like assuming the bully pulpit and taking a powerful stance. She's not doing anything. She's utterly useless. Now, this sets aside any of the baked in just hypocrisies of the libertarian argument. So like, this is the point where I lose them all if they're watching, where like they, it's like they want the liberty and they want the lack of government, but it literally requires like an authoritarian to come in and dismantle it. So you can't have your libertarian ideology without authoritarianism. So it's just inherently, contradictory in that sense. So, like, let them sit there and seethe like the bunch of little house cats that think that they're so independent and powerful, and yet they completely rely on an entire system that lets them exist without any kind of understanding of how that system works. But it's fine. You can't win them all.
There's things that happen, but I know, having handled these types of cases myself, in other words, where there's officer involved in the use of lethal force, there has to be a thorough and complete investigation, and that is what my hope is that happens there.
It appears we are seeing a recalibration, at least for now, from the administration in terms of following a more orderly and traditional process within the law. The Fourth Amendment to the Constitution protects all of us against unreasonable government search and seizure. Do the self-signed administrative warrants that ICE is using, in your opinion, do those allow agents here in New Hampshire to forcibly enter someone's home to make an arrest?
Well, Adam, listen, I think that obviously we have an attorney general that can look at the legality of any kind of situation like that. But here's what's happening in New Hampshire. Why we don't have something that, like what's happening in Minnesota, is that we have cooperation at every level of law enforcement. In other words, federal discussing with state and local, focused on public safety and making sure we keep criminals off our streets, and also making sure that officers are safe.
She's going to say in a second here, but like, we're literally like one of the safest states in the nation. So let me ask the question. I'm not going to do it right now, but like, if I jump over to the uploaded videos from WMUR, a significant portion of them will be like weather related videos. Almost everything else that they have is crime related. So if we are the safest state in the nation, why is the most coverage dedicated to crime? If it's such a non-issue here, then why does it receive such a disproportionate, outsized representation in the only TV outlet for news coverage within the state? What is explain to me. I would love to hear somebody from WMUR explain to me how that works and why that's the case. Because to me, that comes off as a like that's propaganda, right? Like, that's meant to like rile people up so that they're focused on crime statistics and anecdotal stories about like, oh, well, there was this assault and we really need to be worried about. So, you got to make sure, you got to make sure that you keep your carry in your car or on your body so that you're ready to shoot whoever you need to shoot at a moment's notice, right? It's like, this is all meant to like gin up anxiety and fear in the populace. Meanwhile, they will literally completely destroy any of the institutions that keep you sustained in your everyday life, and they won't talk about it at all. So this is what I am trying to get at when it comes to like explaining to people that like, you need to be media literate. You need to literally ask yourself, what am I not being shown? You need to assess what you're seeing in media representation and say what's absent from this. What's not being discussed? What's not being displayed? What's the opinion that debates all this? And then you have to consider the validity of that non-represented opinion or position or perspective, and you need to gauge how valid that critique is, because in most instances, at least in this country, but in a lot of places too, just outside of the US, this is the modus operandi, is to create permission structures for those that already have power to maintain that power, so that you don't look at how actually weak they are if everybody were to all of a sudden gain a consciousness of how duped the public is, right? It's really toxic for us, and they are genuinely, as I've said multiple times in this video, they are relying on you being stupid.
Safe themselves because they're working together and communicating together.
It's clear it's not happening like that here at the moment, but
it's not going to happen like that here.
So a lot of voters are upset.
Communication and how we do things here in New Hampshire.
Nonetheless, a lot of people are upset about how this is going, and we're seeing again the recalibration of the Trump administration. I'm just interested, when you're facing those independent voters later this year, and they want to know, hey, can you give us an instance in which you've really vocally stood up to the Trump administration on something? What are you going to point to?
Let me tell you this. What I'm going to say to those independent voters: New Hampshire is the safest state in the nation. Also, we're obviously number one in a number of other areas, but the safest state in the nation, because I am focused on.
What are you going to do to stand up to the Trump administration? Response: New Hampshire is the safest state in the nation. What? I'm sorry, what? In what world do those things have anything to do with each other? Really, that's an earnest question. Okay, let me set aside any biases that I have and just say, somebody please explain to me how her response answers the question that she was asked. Because as far as I can tell, it doesn't even, it's completely unrelated. There is no equivalence in any of this. There's no direct relationship between her response and the inquiry that was made. So what are we doing? What are we doing?
Public safety. We have great law enforcement at every level here. They work together really well. We have a wonderful quality of life. And every day I stand up for the people of New Hampshire. There have been many times, of course, I've disagreed with the administration, whether it was on the tariffs with Canada, various funding issues where, suddenly we've seen funding stripped on critical areas. So I stand up for New Hampshire every day. That's what I do. And I'll work with them when they're doing things that are good for New Hampshire, like we received the Rural Health Transformation Grant, the most amount of money in New England. And we were glad to receive it. It's going to help us transform rural health in our North Country, telehealth, providers, hopefully getting scholarships for people that want to work in the North Country.
Right, because you don't challenge them. That is the reason you are granted any type of assistance at all, is because you refuse to materially challenge them in any kind of public or legitimate, serious way. So whatever meager crumbs that you manage to acquire for the state comes directly from the fact that you refuse to have any type of spinal cord or vertebrae when it comes to actually addressing things that you do disagree with. It means you're their bitch. That's really all that means right there.
To stay in healthcare, it's going to be very positive. So there are instances where, of course, I'm standing up, and then there's instances where I'm advocating for New Hampshire like that.
Two more questions from the national level, and we'll pivot back to some fun state issues. Now, President Trump is suing the IRS for $10 billion. He can direct the DOJ to settle this lawsuit, and he just said in his Super Bowl interview with NBC that indeed he wants to give this money to charity. So it sounds like he's very serious about doing this. Would that be an appropriate use of taxpayer dollars?
I haven't followed his or anyone else's lawsuits. The only thing that I focus on is what's the impact on New Hampshire and what's happening here, so I'm not even familiar with that.
So if he takes this money, you're just not going to have an opinion on it?
Well, I don't even know what it is, Adam. There's
he's
lots
suing
of things
the IRS
happening.
for $10 billion.
Obviously there's people suing people every day, including the president. I don't follow the lawsuits. What I care about is what's happening in the state of New Hampshire.
Like, I don't follow it. Like, so what do? You follow what's happening in New Hampshire, but you clearly don't follow what's happening in New Hampshire, because you just said earlier in the interview that you didn't know any of these things that were going on, and it was the responsibility of other people within your cabinet to know them. So, like, again, you're literally up here saying that you know nothing. You are useless. You are literally, Kelly Ayotte is sitting here making the argument that she is functionally useless, doesn't do any of the responsibilities of her job, and none of it is her problem. So not only is she saying she's useless, she's confident in her uselessness. She's confident in any type of lack of function that she serves for anybody. It's like, I have never heard such an incredible, I mean, maybe I have, I don't know. That might be hyperbolic right there, but it's like, this goes into the all-time greats of arguing that I have no value, and yet you should continue to let me have power despite the fact that I have no value. I am useless, and you should maintain me in my post because I am useless. That's the argument.
And, he'll make his decisions, what he wants to do on a lawsuit. It's great if he wants to give it a cheer, whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but I can tell you what I do every day. And that is, I want to know what's the impact on the state of New Hampshire. If that impacts New Hampshire, I'll have an opinion.
Okay, I've got one.
What I do every day is want to know things. That's what that sentence means right there. That's what she just said. What I do every day is want to know things. Just so we're clear, that's what she just said.
With New Hampshire impact for you, the Trump administration, the president is also calling to nationalize elections. Do you want to see a federal takeover of the voting systems in New Hampshire?
Absolutely not. I did not support a national election when President Obama was in office. I do not support nationalizing election with President Trump in office. We do elections right here in New Hampshire. We do it at the local level, working with our Secretary of State, who does an excellent job in providing guidance to our.
Tell me how this is any different than Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries issuing strongly worded letters. Because I don't, when it comes to like the de facto reality, I don't see a difference. What the fuck, guys?
Local election officials, and that's why we have the first in the nation primary. We do it well, and I have confidence in our elections.
Okay, lots of local issues and state issues we want to get to. When we get back to more with the governor, we'll hear her thoughts on key bills.
Yeah, great. Like, to just get back to the, oh yeah, well, we're first in the nation. You know, we believe in election integrity, even though the conservatives in the state are trying to implement even more controls on the documentation that you need to provide to your local town office in order to vote. So let's complicate that more. We're going to decomplicate voting by making it more complicated. Insane. Completely insane. So I don't know, guys. I don't like to do too much reaction content because I don't really think that's like the best use of my time. I think there's plenty of stuff out there that lets people, do that. But again, I do at the same time, I think it's important to come out here and do like some like analysis type stuff of like actual news, because again, when people don't have any degree of media literacy in like just a very like Occam's razor type of way, that this is how we ended up where we got, because people don't even understand the definitions of words that they use to describe things. So how is it possible that you can consume something like what we just watched that's in like just a total word salad and actually glean any type of information out of it? Because that was like literally, how long was that fucking video? It's like literally 12 minutes of just time wasting. So like, lock in, guys. This ain't it anymore, and we really need to be doing better than this.